Good morning. This is day 3. We are about to get started. Today I am drinking hot water with a lemon, American lemon here, and honey. I feel like my throat needs a little sparkling. A little reviving. Oh my gosh. All right. Shall we get started? Day number 3. And we are on the 4th idea from the Dalai Lama. His believe or view, was it? His perspective, pardon. Okay, number 4. Each individual has a responsibility to shape institutions. Anger plays a large role in current conflicts, such as those in the Middle East and Asia, as well as those between highly industrialized and economically undeveloped nations and so forth. These conflicts arise from a failure to understand how much we have in common. Answers cannot be found in the developed use of greater military force, nor are they purely political or technological. The problems we face today cannot be blamed upon one person or cause, but are the symptoms of our own past negligence. What is required is an emphasis on what we share, which is basically a spiritual approach. Hatred and fighting cannot bring happiness to anyone, even to the winners of battles. Violence always produces misery, so it is essentially counterproductive. It is time for world leaders to learn to transcend differences of race, culture, and ideology in order to regard one another with appreciation of our common human situation. To do so would uplift individuals, communities, nations, and world at large. Mass media, including the internet, can make a considerable contribution here by giving greater coverage to human interest items that reflect the ultimate oneness of humanity. I hope that all international organizations, especially the United Nations, will be more active and effective in serving humanity and promoting international understanding. It will indeed be tragic if a few powerful members misuse world bodies, such as the UN, for their one-sided interests. The UN must become the chief instrument of world peace. It is the only source of hope for small oppressed nations and hence for the planet as a whole. Within each nation, the individual ought to be given the right, the right to achieve happiness, and among nations there must be equal concern for the welfare of even the weakest nations. I am suggesting that one system is better than another, and all should adopt it. On the contrary, I am not suggesting that one system is better than another, and all should adopt it. My goodness. On the contrary, a variety of political systems and ideologies is desirable given the diverse dispositions within the human community. This variety enhances our prospects for happiness. Therefore, each national community should be free to evolve its own political and socioeconomic system based on the principle of self-determination. By the same token, because all nations are more economically dependent upon one another than ever before, human understanding must go beyond national boundaries to embrace the international community at large. Indeed, unless we can create an atmosphere of genuine cooperation in which threatened to or actual use of force is replaced by heartfelt understanding, world problems will only increase. Not only is the gap between rich and poor morally wrong, but as a practical matter, it is a source of problems. If people in poor countries are denied the happiness they desire and deserve, they will be dissatisfied and pose problems for the rich. If unwanted social, political, and cultural restrictions continue to be imposed upon unwilling people, the prospects for world peace grow dim. However, if we satisfy people at a heart-to-heart level, peace will surely ensue. I realize the enormity of the task before us, but I see no alternative other than the one I am prosing, which is based on our common humanity. Nations have no choice but to be concerned about the welfare of others, not only because of the shared aspirations of all humanity, but also because it is in the mutual and long-term interests of all concerned. We must also consider human benefit in the long run rather than just the short term. In the past, attempts have been made to create more just and equal societies. Institutions have been established with noble charters to combat antisocial forces. Unfortunately, such efforts have been undermined by selfishness and greed. Today we bear witness to the way ethics and noble principles are obscured by self-interest, particularly in the political sphere. Politics devoid of ethics does not further human welfare, and life without morality reduces humans to the level of beasts. This leads some of us to refrain from politics altogether. But politics is not axiomatically dirty. Rather, the misguided instruments of our political culture have distorted high ideals and noble aspirations. Morality and compassion, decency and wisdom are the building blocks of all civilizations. Morality, compassion, decency, and wisdom are the building blocks of all civilizations. These qualities must be cultivated in childhood and sustained through systematic moral education in a supportive social environment so that a more humane world may emerge. We cannot wait for the next generation to make this change. We ourselves must attempt to a renewal of basic human values. Hope lies in future generations, but not unless we institute major change on a worldwide scale in our educational systems now. We need a revolution in commitment to universal values. It is not enough to make noisy calls to halt moral degeneration. We must do something about it. Since present day governments do not shoulder such religious responsibilities, humanitarians and religious leaders must strengthen existing civic, social, cultural, educational, and religious organizations to revive human and spiritual values. Where necessary, we must create new generation. Where necessary, we must create new organizations to achieve these goals. Only in so doing can we hope to create a more stable basis for world peace. The seed of love and compassion is there in us intrinsically, but promoting and nurturing it have to be done through insight and education. To solve the problems humanity is facing, we need to organize meetings of scholars, educators, social workers, neuroscientists, physicians, and experts from all fields to discuss the positive and negative sides of what we have done thus far, as well as what needs to be introduced and what needs to be changed in our educational system. Proper environment plays a crucial role in the healthy growth of a child. All problems, including terrorism, can be overcome through education, particularly by introducing concern for all others at the preschool level. Living in society, we must share the suffering of our fellow citizens and practice compassion and tolerance, not only toward our loved ones, but also toward our enemies. This is the test of our moral strength. We must set an example by our own practice. We must live by the same high standards of integrity we seek to convey to others, and the ultimate purpose is to serve and benefit the world. My intention in this book is to make a contribution, however small, to world peace by explaining Buddhist notions about finding the source of hurtful emotions such as lust and hatred within ourselves, and then describing Buddhist practices to undermine these painful influences and supplant them in the heart with insight and love. Excuse me. I am like a dude. I keep burping. You see, part 1. Part 1, the need for insight. Okay. I'm sorry, you guys. Here we go. Part 1. The need for insight. I guess I just needed like a break. Oh my god. 1. Laying the ground for insight to growth. Here's a quote. When starting to practice, be eager like a deer trapped in a pen seeking to get out. In the middle, be like a farmer during harvest, not waiting for anything. In the end, be like a shepherd who has brought the flock home. Paltro Rinpoche's sacred word. What makes all this trouble in the world? our own counterproductive emotions. Once they are generated, they harm us both superficially and deeply. These afflictive emotions accomplish nothing but trouble from beginning to end. If we tried to counteract each and envy one individually, we would find ourselves in an endless struggle. So, what is the root cause of afflictive emotions that we have that we can address more fruitfully? In the many scriptures of the Buddha, we find descriptions of practices to counter lust, such as meditating on what lies beneath the skin, flesh, bone, organs, blood, solid waste, and urine. These reflections do indeed temporarily suppress lust, but they do not accomplish the same for hatred. And the reverse is also true. Those practices taught for the sake of undermining hatred, such as cultivating love, do not act as cures for lust. Like medicines used to counteract a specific illness, they do not treat other illnesses. However, because all counterproductive emotions are based on ignorance of the true nature of things, practices that teach us how to overcome that ignorance undercut all afflictive emotions. The antidote to ignorance addresses all troubles. This is the extraordinary gift of insight. As preparation for developing insight into how you other persons and things actually exist, it is crucial to study spiritual teachings closely, thinking about them again and again. This is important because in order to generate a state that allows us to penetrate clear through to reality, we must first correct our mistaken ideas about existence. It's the same. Identifying ignorance. Title: Identifying Ignorance. To succeed at developing insight, first you need to identify ignorance. Ignorance is the context in not just a lack of knowledge, it is an active misapprehension of the nature of things. It mistakenly assumes that people and things exist in and of themselves by way of their own nature. This is not an easy concept to grasp, but it is very important to identify this faulty perception, for it is the source of destructive emotions such as lust and hatred. In Buddhism, we repeatedly speak of emptiness, but if you do not see how people mistakenly attribute to things their own inherent existence, it is impossible to understand emptiness. You have to recognize, at least in a rough way, what you are falsely superimposing on phenomena before you can understand the emptiness that exists in its stead. Understanding how you actually exist, who you really are, without the overlay of false imagination is the main topic of this book. All of the Buddha's many teachings are aimed at maintaining liberation from cyclic existence, with its endless movement from one life to another, and achieving omniscience. Ignorance is the root of everything that stands in the way of these attainments. Ignorance binds us to suffering. Before, ignorance has to be clearly identified. Therefore, ignorance has to be clearly identified. To do so, we must consider how this false quality of inherent existence appears to the mind, how the mind assents to it, and how the mind bases so many ideas on fundamental mistake. Just one. Ignorance is not just other than knowledge, it is the contradiction of knowledge. Scientists tell us that the more closely we examine things, the more closely we are to find empty space. Ignorance, by relying on appearances, superimposes onto persons and things a sense of concreteness that in fact is not there. Ignorance would have us believe that these phenomena exist in some fundamental way. Through ignorance, what we see around us seems to exist independently, without depending on other factors of its existence. But this is not the case. By giving people and things around us this exaggerated status, we are drawn into all sorts of overblown and ultimately hurtful emotions. Identifying this false appearance of things and acknowledging our tacit assent to this illusion are the first steps toward realizing that you and other beings, as well as other objects, do not exist the way they appear to. They do not exist so concretely and autonomously. In the process of developing an accurate assessment of who you actually are, you need to appreciate the disparity between how you appear to your own mind and how you indeed exist. The same holds true for other people and all the other phenomena of the world. Meditative reflection. Are you ready? Consider, number 1, all counterproductive emotions are based on and dependent upon ignorance of the true nature of persons and things. Number 2, there are specific ways to suppress lust and hatred temporarily. But if we undermine the ignorance that misconceives the nature of ourselves, others, and all things, all destructive emotions are undermined. Number 3, ignorance sees phenomena which actually do not exist in and of themselves, and existing independent of thought. All right, it is time. Actually, almost to the minute. And I'm gonna go ahead and leave it on chapter number 2. All right, if you want to talk about what we just read, feel free to reach out to me. You know how to find me at Miss Ruba. You can DM me. You can also find these readings. They're going to be uploaded on YouTube. Same as Instagram, I'm doing the same 3 hashtags, so you can find them in order, labeling them by days 1, 2, 3, and so forth. And the hashtag is Ruba Yogi Reading. The second hashtag is, so that's you find all the audios. Eventually there's going to be definitely more than one. Then the title of this book, so Ruba Yogi, How to See Yourself as You Really Are. You're going to find all the audios on the specific title book. And then Ruba Yogi, How to See Yourself as You Really Are, day blank for the order. All right, you guys, have a wonderful day. It is beautiful in the valley. Looks like the fog is leaving us. I am losing my voice, so that's why I have this. And I will post when the next live reading will be. Have a wonderful day.